As of recent, retardmaxing has become a popular term, and as somewhat of a retard myself, wanted to discuss retardmaxing and the true philosophical backing for acting like a retard at all times. Now, of course, it sounds stupid. The term itself sounds retarded, but I actually believe that there is a deep truth and a philosophically sound argument to be made for retard maxing. And I came to this conclusion independently outside of retard maxing by going through a lot of difficulty and pain in my life that was self inflicted. And my basic thesis is essentially that the human being is comprised of, well, if you simplify it, two different parts. You have your self, the deep, sort of eminent personality, the you that exists beneath your thoughts. This is the core of who you are. It is outside of your thoughts. Your conscious mind is the second part. That conscious mind is sort of like a structure that lives on top of your actual self. And that's where your thoughts kind of live. And the reason that we can deduce that this is true is because we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are something that we observe. They sort of just generate and we observe them. We actually sort of hear them in a way. I mean, I don't hear voices in my head, but there's a dialogue or a monologue in my head, and those are my thoughts. The problem is that the actual source of your desires and the source of your will as a human being comes from that deep self. It comes from the deepest part of you. It doesn't come from your thoughts. Your thoughts are purely rationalizations and coping mechanisms that wind you up and cause you to ruminate and sit around thinking. And they typically tend to lead you astray and make you decide to go against your own actual will. So, the reason that I believe retard maxing is the best way to live is not because I think that you should not think or you shouldn't be smart. A doctor with a PhD can totally retard max and have a great life. The point of retard maxing is to shut off the aspect of yourself, this conscious mind that essentially was built, unfortunately, during your early years of childhood. And the fundamental problem that we all face is that this conscious mind that comprises a large part of our personality is sort of a mask, and it is not necessarily aligned with our authentic self, our authentic desires, and what we actually want and what we actually want to do. This conscious mind was not there when we were born. It was developed over the course of many years. And in those first primarily 5 years of childhood, the conscious mind was developed not, let me say it this way. Your conscious mind was developed in order to optimize and survive in your particular environment, the environment that you were in when you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old and older. Most of that development happened during those first 5 years when essentially your parents were your life source. You had no ability to be independent or take care of yourself. The result of this is that you needed to find ways to interact with the world to bring about your desires, to get what you want. When you're a tiny baby, of course, what you want is maybe you want milk, maybe you want attention and connection with your parents, maybe you want to play, whatever it is. You don't really have the ability to communicate that. And even if you could communicate, even if you came out of the womb speaking and were fluent in whatever language, it wouldn't matter because you would still be entirely dependent on your parents' ability to fulfill your needs. You do not have the ability to fulfill your own needs as a small child. And that's the root of the problem. The conscious mind, the ego, this part of you was developed as a structure and a template for you to interact with and integrate with the world in which you lived. Of course, none of us lived in the same world when we were growing up. All of our parents, all of our households, the way in which we grew up has its own particular story. And for this reason, our conscious mind is very much locked in and stuck in this format that was created. And for each person, it is very subjective. And this is the reason that many people have different personality disorders. And if you look at people with BPD and narcissism, whatever psychological disorder you can name, these were not something that they came out of the womb with. Perhaps they had a genetic propensity for that disorder, but that disorder was developed. It's actually a personality structure that was developed in order to cope with the world that they lived in. And typically that world was quite harsh, perhaps abusive, and they were neglected or their needs were not met in a significant way. And this distortion of their personality was essentially their coping mechanism in order to either rationalize what was happening or in order to try to manipulate this situation in order to get their needs met. Children cannot meet their own needs. What can they do if they can't meet their own needs? Well, of course, they can cry, they can complain. When they start speaking, they might be able to communicate some things. But fundamentally, the relationship you have with your parents is an emotional relationship. It's not like a business relationship where you say, hi, yes, mother, I would like some toys for my birthday. It's an emotional relationship. And the genesis that of your feelings and your emotions, that comes from the self. It's completely authentic and natural. However, the conscious mind that you develop in order to cope with the lack of your needs being met is essentially just a way to manipulate your parents in whatever way you can in order to have your needs met, or to manipulate yourself into accepting in some crude or sort of perverse way, accepting the fact that you are being neglected in some way. Now, I'm not some kind of freak that thinks everyone was abused as children and we all just need to get over our trauma. I don't like thinking of it that way. And it's definitely not the case. The fact of the matter is, though, that unfortunately, our ability to have our needs met consistently for the first 5 years plus of our lives, it rounds to zero. Essentially, no one has not been neglected in some way. And it doesn't mean that your parents did something horrible. It's essentially impossible not to misread and misinterpret your baby's needs and give them the wrong thing at the wrong time, probably fairly consistently over the course of those years. So even the greatest parents are most likely going to show up with their own template of how to show up relationally to their child and to the household, to the family, and to the world, that is going to set up a world where this child, you, must integrate into that relational sort of, whatever you want to call it, this baggage that we all have, our parents have. You have to integrate into it in order to survive. Now, maybe you could survive without integrating into your parents' psyche and being able to essentially integrate into their world, the one that they created and the one that you live in with them. Maybe you wouldn't die. However, when you're a small child, you do perceive the threat of not being accepted and not having your needs met to some degree by your parents. You perceive that as a threat of death. Abandonment as a child is incredibly painful for the baby because the baby is entirely dependent on the parent for sustenance. For that reason, if your mom leaves you crying in your room for hours, you actually think you're dying. The pain is probably the worst emotional pain that you'll feel in your entire life. So, what do? You develop this conscious ego. You develop your ego in order to integrate yourself into a world where your needs are fundamentally not met. And you try your best to essentially manipulate yourself and your own behavior in order to fit in the right way so that your needs can be met or that you can feel safe and not threatened. Now, again, I don't want to sound like we're all abused and it's all trauma. This is just facts. This is just facts. We all basically are a victim to this reality. Okay, and I don't even want to say a victim. This is what was given to us on this planet. This is the experience of separation from God that we all are subject to. It is what it is. However, what's beautiful about retardmaxing is the idea that you can simply turn off that part of your mind that is constantly trying to manipulate yourself. I consider that ego to be this it's sort of like a parasite on me. At this point in my life, I sort of feel it's parasitic. It's like it's got its claws in me at many times. It feels like something outside of myself. And the more that you lean as much as you can into embracing your own desires and your will, the more you feel this parasitic relationship with the ego, as if it's this insufferable demon that is trying to control you. So, the point is, the ego is actually there just to regulate and try to control you. It's like a prison warden that you live with, okay? And unfortunately for you, the real world that you live in now is not your childhood home. You are not subject to being completely dependent on other people. You can manage yourself now. So the ego is actually completely unnecessary at this point in time. You don't have to pretend to be a certain way in order to get along with the world. You don't have to betray your own deep desires in order to get along with the world. Now, when I started toying with this idea, the first thing that I felt was fear, because my instant gut feeling was that if I am left free, if I'm free to do what I want, if I'm free to tell people, no, I don't want to do that, if I'm free to feel my feelings instead of avoid them, which is another way that the ego tries to manage us, I thought that invoked a deep sense of fear in me, the idea of being free. Why? Because won't I go out of control? Won't it destroy my life? Won't I not be able to keep relationships, right? What if I have sexual desires that cannot be fulfilled in a moral way, monogamous way, right? What if I have sexual desires that my girlfriend is not involved in? That's normal, right? If I just go out and I let myself do whatever I want, what am I going to end up doing? I'm going to end up womanizing. I'm going to end up I might do some drugs. Why not, right? But the reality is that fear-based response is not rooted in the reality you live in now. And your desires are not something that you have to permanently stifle and push down. And that doesn't mean you're going to go on a wild bender and get a prostitute and you're going to kill someone when they argue with you in a Walmart parking lot. Because most of our distorted and immoral desires actually are a distortion of our original deep desire that's being distorted by our ego. And rage, for example, as an emotion, we all feel rage at some point. When rage is repressed, that's when we want to kill. When sexual desire is repressed, that's when we want to go do something nasty. When these desires are repressed, we actually manifest their end results. The fear of becoming a drug addict is what draws you towards drugs. And this is true for essentially everything. By fearing something, you manifest it. Every single thought that you have is a prayer, Okay? Every single thing that goes through your mind, even your feelings, they are a call for something. And I called for God's presence in my life for many years without ever feeling the presence at all. But then I realized that my call was generated from a place of fear. I didn't believe, I didn't have faith in God. So when I asked for God, when I asked for God to show up in my life, I was asking out of a base instinct. My base, deeper feeling was that God was not real. Why would I have to ask in the first place if I believed in him? So, when we look at our lives as this sort of relationship that exists with two pieces of us that are a yin and yang, we must understand that a true retard does not sit worrying. A retard accepts his circumstances. And accepting your circumstances does not mean feeling good. And that's one of the key aspects to understanding this. In order to embrace your true self, you must unlock your emotions. That was the key for me. Essentially, the majority of the manipulation that I've done to myself, which has caused immense suffering in my life, came from the suppression of emotions. But those emotions were coming from my deeper self. The suppression of those emotions was a coping mechanism built by my ego in order to survive, so to speak, in my childhood home. I felt it was required in all relationships for me to be accepted, for me to neglect myself. My base assumption about the world that came from my ego was that in order to be loved, in order to be accepted, in order to have any sense of stability in relationships with others, I must put myself last. And that doesn't always mean what you think it means. I put myself last emotionally. I put my emotions last because expressing them felt unsafe to me. But I'm not a kid anymore. For whatever reason, when I was a kid, and I don't know exactly why, I learned that expressing my emotions vulnerably and authentically was met with rejection. Okay? And I have brought that assumption into my adulthood, even though I am completely safe now. And I brought it into and I brought it into every relationship that I've ever had. So, if I found something that someone said insulting, I would just eat it. And as I grew older, this habit didn't reduce in its intensity. It actually magnified and became worse and worse. And as I sought masculinity, as I tried to become a more masculine man, I learned a very primitive and very retarded idea of what masculinity is. Actually, it's not retarded. A retard knows what masculinity is. This is a distortion of masculinity, and it is that as a man, you don't show your emotions. You repress them and you put them away. And we know what happens when we do that, even as men. We must cope in some way, right? So, whether it's drinking, workaholism, or just being a fucking bastard, it comes from us shoving our emotions down. We just eat them and just swallow them. However, I've learned now that masculinity is not. It is not repressing your emotions. In fact, the only reason you would repress your feelings is because you're afraid. And being fearful is not very masculine. Being courageous is masculine. And being courageous enough to feel your feelings, yeah, that's pretty fucking masculine if you ask me. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Jeff, that's pathetic. You're trying to tell me that being masculine means I'm going to be a crying little baby all the time? No, that's not what I'm saying. There's a difference between expressing yourself authentically and with your emotions involved in that process and being hysterical. Of course, being hysterical is not masculine, but it's also not an emotional. Being hysterical is actually the result of not being able to feel your emotions and allow them to go through you. You're trying to control them. Being hysterical is freaking out because your emotions feel like they're too much and you try to hold them down. That's what a hysterical episode is. That's why you freak out, you scream, you cry, you go ah. That's hysterical. What's not hysterical? Oh, let's say your girlfriend insults you in some kind of way. I'll give you an example. My girlfriend recently, she's Colombian. She recently told me in passing, I think I'm going to move back to Colombia. And that's what men understand to be a test. What it was an insult to our relationship. What, you're just going to abandon our relationship? You just want to leave me and go back, move back to Colombia? Like, okay, that's a fucking insult. You obviously don't take this seriously. My reaction was silence, and I thought that was masculine. I thought that was masculine because I thought, well, if I'm a man, that wouldn't faze me. I understand that she's just being an annoying brat. But it was insulting, in fact. It was insulting. The idea that she would just pack her bags and leave, it was an insult to my commitment to the relationship. Does that mean I need to freak out at her? No. But an appropriate reaction would not be to repress my inner instant gut reaction. When she said it, I instantly felt angry, and that's natural because it is very justifiable for me to feel that way. And that's just how I felt. I don't give a fuck if it's justified. It's just how I felt. But instead of expressing it, I shut it down. Weeks later, we're in a conversation and she brings it up. She says, you know, one time recently I said I was going to move away and you didn't even care. And I thought to myself, bingo. She had insulted me to get a reaction. She wanted me to react negatively. She wanted me to get mad and upset. She wanted to see me have an authentic emotional experience. And more importantly, she wanted to validate to herself that I cared. But I insisted in that moment to myself that my duty as a man is to simply ignore it. But silence is not the solution. The solution is simply to, when you have the feeling well up inside you, let it out. And that doesn't mean you do something crazy. That's what people get twisted. This is what people don't understand about emotions. And this is what I've learned. When you feel rage, that doesn't mean that you have to go and destroy something or beat someone up or yell at someone. Masculinity is feeling your feelings and expressing them in a restrained and appropriate way, yes. But that doesn't mean you suppress them. That doesn't mean that you shut them down and you don't show them. Hiding yourself, hiding your feelings, listen, I know that as men, we're not supposed to talk about this. We're not supposed to have feelings. But listen, where are feelings from? What are they? They're you, dude. They're your deep self. They're what you are. They are your deeper self underneath all the bullshit. Underneath all of the bullshit. Your feelings are your calling. They are calling to you. They are you. They are innate to you. They don't feel separate. Right? Your thoughts feel separate to you. Your feelings, not so much. They feel like an innate reaction to your experience. And to suppress them is to betray yourself on the deepest possible level. And this is where retardmaxxing comes back into the equation. A retard doesn't think about it. Stop thinking about it. When those feelings come, just express yourself. And it's not this stupid happy-go-lucky bullshit we were taught as kids. Be yourself, be yourself. They told us to be ourselves, but at the same time punished us for it, right? It was hypocritical as fuck. Be true to yourself. Honor yourself. Honor yourself. Are you not submitting? Are you not submissive to your woman or whoever it is, right? I'm just using this as an example, but let's say that your woman says something that upsets you. Are you not being submissive if you just, I'm just going to ignore that, even though it's insulting? Are you not submitting? Isn't that inherently not masculine? The truth is, the ideal state is not pensive. It is not ruminating. It is not sitting and thinking. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of the thinking I've done has been a rationalization of my feelings. It has been a way to rationalize my way out of how I felt. I will sit there stressed out about money for hours. And my thinking is, it's not even providing a solution to the fact that I don't have enough money. It is an attempt to resolve my anxiety. It is an attempt to make the feeling go away. So my core argument here is simple. There is an innate person in you, childlike almost. I mean, remember when you were just a kid? Remember how you were? Don't you remember parts of your personality and the way that you just ran around in the world when you were a little kid? Don't you remember those, and don't they feel like they're gone now? I recently went to the park and I saw a grown man rolling down a hill with his baby. He had like not a baby, he had like a toddler. And they were rolling down the grass hill together, rolling down. And it was the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time because it was childlike in nature. He wasn't, this guy looked very like rough. He had a big beard. He looked like muscular. He just didn't look like the kind of guy you would see in such a like childlike sort of state, rolling around in the grass. But I thought to myself, that's a fucking man right there, dude, because I my instant reaction before I felt the beauty, I felt embarrassed for him. And isn't that disgusting? Isn't that disgusting? I thought to myself, oh my God, I could never do that. I would be embarrassed someone would see me and think I'm an idiot and make fun of me for being such a childlike idiot. But it's comical, really. Like, that's just the ego talking. It's an insult. That guy was living his fucking life. He didn't give a fuck what somebody thought walking by. Oh, look at that dumbass. He's rolling down the hill. What a little baby. Nah, he was enjoying his time with his daughter, dude. In a very beautiful way. And I envy him. And I'm trying to become him because that guy's a fucking retard, man. He doesn't give a fuck. Think about those aspects of your personality that were nascent. They were innate in you. They were in you before the world took them away. When I was a kid, I was fucking happy, dude. I was smiling, running around. I loved the world. I loved life. I was curious, and I was a jokester. I was always trying to pull some shit, make people laugh. Now, people would describe me as the most reserved person. But that's not even innate to me. It's a protection mechanism. It's a way to protect myself from embarrassment and shame. And what do I feel? I feel decapitated. I feel like a lesser version of myself. I gotta let my cat inside. So what's the ultimate lesson here? It's quite simple. Do everything you can to destroy this parasitic conscious mind that separates you from your innate desires. Who knows what you might find? You might find you like things that you didn't realize you liked. I was so distorted, man, in my life. Like, I thought, like, I couldn't even play sports. And I'm not saying that that was some kind of performative masculinity, because obviously sports are a very masculine undertaking generally. But it was this thing of like, no, that's like embarrassing, dude. Like running around, ugh, you couldn't catch me doing that. Like, what if I slip and fall? I'm gonna look like an idiot. Like, what? That is so pathetic, man. And it took me into my, like, pretty much into my 30s to be like, okay, mom, I'll play tennis with you. I'll play tennis with you. And you know what? I fucking loved it. Like, I enjoy the shit out of it. And I feel like a kid again when I'm doing it. And I think there's a lot of examples of this in all of our lives. And like on the internet today, man, my YouTube feed is just completely filled with guys bitching and complaining about women. Like, oh, women are so washed today. Women are just disgusting and they all sleep around, and oh, they're not wife material. Like, shut up, dude. Like, you're just trying to resolve your emotions. You're just trying to make yourself feel better by complaining. And how much of your conscious thoughts, how much of your day do you spend walking around complaining to yourself in your head? Actually think about this. I'm not saying you're complaining out loud. I'm not saying you're telling anybody. But really, answer yourself that question. How much of your day do you spend walking around complaining in your own head? And it is remarkably effortless in a sense to abandon this, because the innate desires and will that lives underneath all of this bullshit is way stronger. That's why you're always struggling with it. That's why you're always fighting. Thinking is fighting, man. Thinking is fighting. I'll tell you what's not fighting. What's most effortless is feeling something and just letting it just happen, dude. And yeah, dude, you might fucking cry. Like I get it, you're not supposed to do that or whatever, but you might also get mad. And a lot of the time, anger and rage for men is essentially just another way of experiencing an emotion that is safer than being more vulnerable, which the emotion that you really are trying to avoid feeling is despair, right? Or loneliness. I don't fucking know, man. But my point is that this retard that's in all of us, this animal, this instinctual primal being in all of us, is way stronger than the conscious mind. I mean, think about it. How long did the primal animal that became human, how long did that development take? Millions of years? And then how long have we had consciousness in the sense of a thinking mind? Humans have not been around for that long. We developed this. It is, in many ways, it is a ball and chain. And using your mind for creation, using your brain and using your thoughts in order to do your job, that's fucking great, dude. That's what it's actually for. It's not there to regulate you. It's not there to fucking tell you what to do. You know what you want to fucking do. It's deep down. You got to just stop twisting it up and trying to manipulate it. Take your mind and use it for your passion. I don't know what that is. It could be fucking making music. It could be computer programming. Whatever that is, put your mind towards that. Stop ruminating. Stop complaining to yourself. Start fucking living, dude. Now, if I feel tired, I don't shame myself for it. I just fucking sleep. Oh, my world's gonna end. I'm gonna be a loser. Oh my god, if I sleep through half the day, I'm gonna be a fucking loser, man. I'm gonna be a fucking big loser. I'm gonna lose everything. Shut up, dude. Like, guess what? I did it and I'm fine. It's literally like I think I'm gonna die if I just indulge myself a little bit. And there's an antagonism that exists between the conscious mind, the ego, and the self, the true self. And the best thing you can do is to deliberately try to reduce that antagonism as much as possible. Embrace the true self. Embrace the feelings that come up, because those are what's there to guide you. And those feelings, by the way, were developed over millions and millions of years of evolution. Your thoughts are just an after effect. They're just this coating, this fucking plastic wrap on top of who you actually are. Stop trying to justify things. Stop trying to give your personality some kind of meaning through thought. It's already there. It's already all underneath all of it. You exist quite perfectly as God created you. And there's nothing that needs to change. You don't have to manipulate yourself in order to achieve your goals. I always thought if I wanted to be successful, the only way was to punish myself constantly, to sacrifice constantly. But you know what I realized? I realized that when you desire something from your deepest will, the the action of going and getting it is effortless. It doesn't feel painful. If you have a goal, you want to be a fucking doctor, you want to build an app, I don't know what fucking people do these days. You want to build a company, you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't know. I'll put it like this. I have a niece. She's almost 3 years old. If someone called me right now and said that she is stuck on the top of a mountain alone and I got to go save her, I would climb that mountain out of a pure, loving desire, and it would feel effortless. I could be super tired, exhausted, about to go to sleep after a long day of work, and someone calls me and says, "You got to climb a mountain right now, dude. Your niece is on top. She accidentally got left there. She's stuck up there alone. She's just lying there. She doesn't know where to go." I'm climbing, bro. I'm climbing for 24 hours straight if I have to. And I'm telling you, my body might tire, but my heart, my soul will not. It will be effortless, dude. You ever go to the gym? You ever go and play a sport? You ever go work a hard day and a hard physical labor job? You ever do landscaping or some shit like that? And even though it's beating your body up, you just feel a limitless, endless degree of energy inside of you. Maybe not physically, but on a deep spiritual level, you're not tired from it. It doesn't beat you down. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't degrade you. It makes you fucking stronger. When you align with your true will, the effort goes away. You don't have to try to be a good person. You don't have to try to be strong. You already are. You don't have to try to achieve your goals. You just naturally do it out of a loving desire for yourself. That is the true realization that I had. I thought that in order for me to reach success in my life, I would have to be the horse and also the guy with the whip, right? And I'll tell you what, the true me, the true self, that's the horse. The guy with the whip, that's my ego, and he's fucking beating that horse, bro. He's beating the shit out of that horse. He's going, yeah, fucking abusing that horse. And that horse is tired. That horse is hurt. What you got to do is become the horse and kick the living shit out of that fucking guy that's whipping you. You fucking buck back. You fucking break his back, bro. You fucking kill him. And then, bro, you kick off the carriage. You fucking buck off the fucking, what's that shit they put on a horse? Saddle. You buck off the saddle. You're wild again, bro. Like, you're fucking free. You're you. You're free. And I guarantee your ass, you can run for miles. You can run for miles because now no one's telling you, you have to fucking do this, otherwise you're fucked. You're useless if you don't do this. No one's whipping you anymore. You're free. And that is the essence of retardmaxing, and why it is not just a joke. It sounds stupid and it sounds funny, but the philosophical underpinnings of this are real. You have to embrace the true self. You have to align with your true will and your true desires and stop distorting them. That's the message. It's working for me so far on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, the whipping boy, he comes around a lot still, but my power is increasing very significantly. I'm no longer afraid. I'm no longer afraid. I'm not afraid to feel angry. I'm not afraid to feel afraid. I'm not afraid to feel sad, despairing. I'm not afraid to feel like nothing's ever going to be okay. When I feel that way, I let it happen. And guess what? Honestly, bro, like literally fucking 15 minutes later, I usually feel better than I did before. So that's enough for today. Thanks for watching.